1991. At the headquarters of one of America's largest corporations, a strange ban was announced. Employees could no longer use a certain word in meetings, phone calls, or even hallway conversations. That word, Coca-Cola was so shaken by their rival Pepsi's ad campaign that they allegedly banned this simple expression of agreement in their own offices. So who was the face of this campaign? A man who went completely blind at age 7, lived as a heroin addict for 17 years, and is remembered as one of the greatest geniuses in music history, Ray Charles. But here's what makes it truly fascinating. This same man had worked for Coca-Cola years earlier. Now let me tell you the story of advertising's greatest betrayal, or its most brilliant move. September 23, 1930. In the small town of Albany, Georgia, Aretha and Bailey Robinson welcomed their first child into the world. They named him Ray Charles Robinson. A few months later, the family moved to Greenville, Florida. They lived in poverty, but little Ray had music in his life. At 3 years old, he was mesmerized by the boogie-woogie melodies played by a man named Wiley Pittman on an old piano at the neighborhood's Red Wing Cafe. Pittman taught the little boy the basics of the piano. This was Ray's first encounter with music, but fate knocked on the door with brutal force. At 5 years old, he watched his younger brother George drown in his mother's laundry tub. Ray tried to save him but couldn't. Right after this trauma, something began to change in his eyes. His vision slowly blurred. Doctors diagnosed glaucoma. By the age of 7, Ray Charles was completely blind. Imagine being born a black child in 1930s. America in the Deep South was hard enough. Now add blindness to that. Most people would have thought this boy's life was over, but Ray Charles would find the light within that very darkness. His mother Aretha sent him to the Florida School for the Deaf and the Blind in St. Augustine. There, Ray learned to read and write music in Braille, piano, saxophone, clarinet, trumpet. He touched every instrument. He played Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, but his soul was somewhere else, at the intersection of gospel and blues. In 1945, at just 15 years old, his mother died of cancer. His father had already abandoned them. Ray Charles was now completely alone, but he refused to give up. Ray made himself a promise. He would go as far away as possible. With the $600 he had saved, he moved to Seattle. There he met a young musician, Quincy Jones. This friendship would last a lifetime. Quincy was amazed at how Ray ignored his blindness. It was like somebody forgot to tell Ray he was blind. He would write years later, "I'd watch him cross the street without cane or dog, dodging traffic, never missing a step. In fact, Ray never acted blind unless there was a pretty girl around. Then he'd get all helpless and sightless, bumping into walls and doors." In 1949, his first hit, Confession Blues, arrived. But the real revolution began in 1954. Ray Charles did something nobody dared to do. He fused gospel music with blues and R&B, what many called the devil's music. The song "I Got a Woman" announced the birth of soul music. The church condemned him, but the audiences loved him. In 1959, What Did I Say exploded. The song was banned on many radio stations for its sexual overtones, but the ban only made it more popular. Ray Charles was now a star. But this rise came with a dark price. The heroin he encountered during tours had become part of his life. He would live with this addiction for 17 years. In 1960, Ray Charles recorded his version of Hoagy Carmichael's "Georgia on My Mind." The song bore the name of the state where he was born and won him 4 Grammy Awards. But here's the irony. The man singing this song was unwelcome in his own state. March 15th, 1961. Ray Charles was scheduled to perform at Bell Auditorium in Augusta, Georgia, but students from Payne College sent him a telegram. The concert venue was enforcing segregation. Whites would enjoy the dance floor while blacks would be forced to sit in the balcony. Ray Charles made a decision. He would not take the stage. The promoter sued him. He paid a $757 fine, but Ray swore he would never perform in Augusta again until segregation was completely abolished, and he kept his word. This incident would later be dramatized in the Hollywood film Ray, which even claimed he was banned from the state. The truth was slightly different, but the message was the same. Ray Charles never compromised his principles. Between 1965 and 1968, Coca-Cola launched the biggest radio advertising campaign in history. Things Go Better with Coke, The Supremes, Marvin Gaye, Roy Orbison, The Who, Aretha Franklin. The era's biggest stars were part of this campaign, and Ray Charles was the campaign's most prominent name. His duets with Aretha Franklin made the top 10 on several radio stations. Years later, Ray would say about this period, "Aretha, I loved her gospel singing. singing? Some of my favorite things are the Coke commercials Aretha and I sang together. They won some awards and even made the top 10 charts on a couple of radio stations. A strong bond had formed between Coca-Cola and Ray Charles. Everyone thought this relationship would last forever, but 20 years later, everything would change. 1989. Diet Pepsi was looking for a new spokesperson. Coca-Cola still led the market, and Pepsi needed an extraordinary move to overtake them. The name that came to mind, Ray Charles. This was a bold move. Ray Charles had been the face of the rival brand for years, but Pepsi knew the risk, and that's exactly why they wanted him. January 1990, Super Bowl. During America's most watched television event, a black and white commercial aired. Ray Charles at his piano, the Raylettes behind him. And that unforgettable melody, "You got the right one, baby." America went wild. According to video storyboard tests, the Ray Charles Diet Pepsi commercials were named America's most popular commercial every quarter of 1991. This had never happened for any commercial before. When consumers were asked to choose between Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi, Pepsi won with 52% over Coke. Previously, Pepsi had been the choice of only 30%. The slogan became a cultural phenomenon. It was referenced in shows like The Cosby Show, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Coneheads. People started calling out, to each other on the streets. The campaign even got a local version in India, filmed with Bollywood stars Amir Khan and Aishwarya Rai. Pepsi spent $70 million on the campaign in 1991 and another $50 million in 1992. Life-size cardboard cutouts of Ray Charles appeared in supermarkets. People sang the jingle in karaoke booths. Over 300,000 people submitted their own versions of the song to a nationwide contest. Coca-Cola was in shock. It was unacceptable that a man who had worked for them for years was now propelling their rival to the top. But even worse, that damn was echoing everywhere. According to the Wall Street Journal, a strange practice began at Coca-Cola's headquarters in Atlanta. Executives started avoiding saying when talking to each other. Instead, they used alternatives like yep, you betcha, or I reckon. Coca-Cola officially denied these claims, but it was well known that the company was working frantically to find a new slogan. Diet Pepsi's success had shaken them to their core. Ray Charles had achieved a first in advertising history. He became the first musician to work for both Coca-Cola and Pepsi. In the movie world, Joan Crawford had accomplished this, but in music, that title belonged to Ray Charles. March 7th, 1979. A historic moment was unfolding in the Georgia state legislature. Former civil rights leader Senator Julian Bond stood at the podium. Today we are here to right a wrong that was done to one of our native sons nearly 20 years ago. In 1961, Ray Charles was banned from performing in the state of Georgia because he refused to play before a segregated audience. Some of us have fought for equality through the political process, but Ray Charles changed American culture by touching people's hearts. That day, Georgia on My Mind was declared the official state song of Georgia. Ray Charles received an official apology from the state of his birth. As applause erupted, a wide smile spread across Ray's face. The journey that began in darkness had been crowned with light. On June 10, 2004, Ray Charles passed away from liver disease at the age of 73, but he left behind more than 60 albums, over 10,000 concerts, 17 Grammy Awards, and a legacy that will never be erased. Ray Charles's story isn't just about a musician's success. It's the story of a man who found light within darkness, turned obstacles into opportunities, and never compromised his principles. His switch from Coca-Cola to Pepsi wasn't just an advertising deal. It was a reflection of Ray Charles's philosophy of life. Nothing stays the same forever. Change is inevitable. And sometimes the greatest victories come after the most unexpected moves. Today, when someone says, they might be unknowingly keeping Ray Charles's legacy alive. Because he wasn't just a singer, he was a genius who danced in the darkness, seeing millions through his blind eyes. Music was born inside me. I didn't create it. It found me. Ray Charles.